Hi guys, it's Matt here from MCS-books, and today I am here to do another Small BookTuber Sunday Shoutout. Now recently I was tagged by Mark at Words Everywhere to do a new tag that he had created called the Books for BookTubers Tag, and I thought that this tag tied in absolutely perfectly with the way that I do my Small BookTuber Sunday Shoutout videos. So I'm going to tie them both together. Now, in Mark's tag, what he did was he went through his favourite booktubers and he took a book from his shelf specifically that he felt reminded him most of this booktuber. And I have done this before in my Sunday BookTubers Shoutout, Small BookTuber Sunday Shout. Oh my god, I can't remember what it was. However, I know I've said it properly before. So however I said it then is the same what I mean now. So I've done it before, but they weren't necessarily, they were all books that I'd read, but they weren't necessarily books I had on my shelf. And I discovered the last time I did this video, for all 5 booktubers, I ended up suggesting at least 2 books to each of them. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to first of all suggest one book that is on my shelf that I think not only will this booktuber enjoy, but the one that kind of makes me think of them, the way that Mark set up his tag. And then the second book is one that I don't have on my shelf, but I still think that this booktuber would enjoy. And that would be the recommendation side of it, I guess. So let's get to it. The first small booktuber that I want to shout out is Mark. Of course, he tagged me, and I think it's a great opportunity to also reciprocate that and to point the rest of you in the direction of his channel so you can check out. He does a lot of great stuff about poetry and some really interesting and thought-provoking videos about the books that he's currently reading and stuff, and he reads quite widely, a good mix of books that are, I don't feel they're usually as talked about on BookTube, so it's really great to get like a new sort of perspective of titles for your bookshelf. So the first book on my shelf that I want to not only recommend, but I think will match well with Mark is this one. It is The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet by David Mitchell. Of course, it's probably going to be every video of these are probably going to have a David Mitchell book in, because he is my favourite author. Funnily enough though, I didn't enjoy this one. I think this is my least favourite of Mitchell's books. I found it quite difficult to get along with, and it just didn't, for me personally, it didn't seem, I didn't really get the point of it. However, I think that Mark would like this one. So Mark is currently living in the Netherlands, and his wife is Dutch. Now, of course, Jacob de Zoet is also Dutch. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right, but however, he is also Dutch, and this book is sort of an exploration of the Dutch East Indies company and how they kind of first initiated sort of trade kind of with Japan. So it's set in Japan, and I think not only does like the Dutch reference play a role here, but also I think Mark would really appreciate all the research that went into this. And this book, I think that's one thing that I kind of struggled with it, was that it was so well researched, it was so perfect in the portrayal, I feel and I assume. However, it was just so kind of weighed down by this research, but I think that's something that Mark would actually appreciate from it, and I think he could get a lot from this. So Mark, if you are interested of David Mitchell, I think this would probably be one of his books that you would enjoy if you haven't already read it, that is. And then the second book that I want to recommend for you, Mark, is Poems, Protest, and a Dream by Juana Inés de la Cruz. This was a book I read recently, and the main reason I chose it again is because actually I did enjoy this. However, I didn't get as much from it as I think you will have, Mark. The poetry in it was something that I didn't really enjoy as much. However, Mark does really like poetry, and I think he would actually better appreciate the form and the structure of the poems in this book than I did, because I think, you know, the style that Juana Inés was writing in was very much quite a strict poetic style that you might need to like understand a bit more the rules of it to appreciate it more. I kind of just was like, oh yeah, they were nice, but didn't get much from them. But not only is she like a great poetess, but she's also a very inspirational figure, and I do think that from this book, Mark, you can get a lot out of it, and I hope that you would enjoy them at least. So then the next booktuber that I would like to shout out is Jasmine at Jasmine's Reads. Jasmine does some really great and really articulate videos about all sorts of books, and I really appreciate the way that she does her top 5 of a specific genre. They're just really good. They're really nice little tidbit videos that just give you 5 recommendations in a specific genre or theme, and she chooses them really nicely and she presents them very well. Now, the book that the book that's on my shelf that I will match with Jasmine and I think she would appreciate, and I don't think she has read it because I checked on her Goodreads and I couldn't see it, is this one. It's The Signature of All Things by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, she is the author of, what's it called? Oh, that really popular one, Eat, Pray, Love, which I think many people have heard of, and, you know, there are a lot of opinions on that book. Now, this one, however, is nothing like that. This is definitely a novel. And the reason that it made me think of Jasmine is that it is literary fiction, but it's also got a sense of like the classics and it's got it's historical fiction also, actually. Probably historical fiction more so than literary, actually. Well, anyway, either way, this book just makes me think of the sort of book that Jasmine would enjoy, kind of all wrapped up into one. It's got a really interesting premise, and the main character, her kind of storyline is driven by her interest in botany, but more specifically the study of moss, which is just so random, but it works really well, and you actually learn a lot about it through her. However, like I said, it just has the feel of a classic, and the sort of classics that I've seen that Jasmine has enjoyed. This kind of is like it encapsulates that same sense that those books, I think, portray also. But it also does have like that historical fiction and literary style of writing, which are things that I believe appeal to Jasmine quite a lot. Judging from the books that she has read and the books that she has particularly enjoyed, this kind of seems to be of a similar vein. And in the second book that I want to suggest to Jasmine, if you are watching Jasmine, she recently made a video, I think it was a wrap-up or a TBR video, I think it was a wrap-up, where she had read June, and she said before reading June that she wanted to read sort of the big names in the big genres and kind of, you know, get a taste for a wider range of reading. So this one's a little bit of a risk, I think. However, Jasmine, I suggest you to take a look at some of the big names of modern British playwrights, and there's one in particular. Now, so for any of my viewers who do enjoy modern British plays, this playwright might be, I think it's questionable as to whether he is actually one of the big ones. And the play that I want to suggest to you, Jasmine, is Bloody Poetry by Howard Brenton. Now, there is a collection of Brenton plays that would have bloody poetry in some of his other plays, but Bloody Poetry is the one that I specifically think you would enjoy, because this play is set, I think it's along the shores of Lake Geneva, and it's got, the characters are Mary Shelley, Percy and Lord Byron, and Claire, Lord Byron's lover at the time. I think her name's Claire something. And Howard Brenton writes his plays with a very sort of political mindset, and he questions sort of the idea of utopia and lots of like sort of human flaws that make us human, perfectly human. But he explores these characters, which I believe are characters that Jasmine is aware of and probably appreciates their work. So he and Brenton explores these characters in a very interesting way that is both dark and dramatic, yet like poses some really valuable questions. And even though it's set in a specific time and a specific place with specific historical figures, the meanings are very relevant to today's society. Even though they were written like, you know, a couple of decades ago, they are still relevant today. So the next small booktuber is one whose channel I feel deserves so many more subscribers. And honestly, if you like the sort of videos that I create, you would certainly like this creator's videos. Her name is Debbie from the book Ponderer. Now, Debbie has a very similar mindset and perspective on the world as I do, and she reads a much broader range of books than I think I do, and she has so many insightful things to say about them, and she's so fair in her reviews, and she's just so knowledgeable about all different facets of life and literature that I particularly like, where she takes two books that kind of don't seem to have any links at all, and then she sort of compares and contrasts them, and she kind of picks out the meanings or sort of scenes and stuff that are linked and how you can compare the two books. Even though they seem quite different, she then kind of breaks them down to actually reveal the ties between them. So in a way, you get two reviews in one video. So to the books now, the book that's on my shelf that I want to recommend is Some Prefer Nettles by Junichiro Tanizaki. And I chose this book. It's not a very long book. However, Debbie likes books about different cultures the way that I do, and she likes learning about different perspectives also. Now, this book is a really interesting book that explores the westernization of Japanese society and the traditional Japanese sort of culture versus this new globalized culture, and explores it through the marriage of the character and his relationship with his father-in-law. It's one of these books where that not much happens, but you learn a lot from it, and you kind of get a great appreciation of life from it. And I think it has that sort of slow burn that I know Debbie likes in literature. So even though it is short, it's very luxurious and it's very thoughtful, and that creates a sort of slow pace when reading it. And the fact that not a whole lot happens, I found really enjoyable. It was quite comforting. Like, I didn't feel tense or anything throughout it, and I think that's part of this book that Debbie would enjoy, and it's that sense of considering culture and considering globalization that I think Debbie will enjoy from this book. And then the second book is one that I raved about early on this year, I think at the start of this year, and it's called Refusal of the Shadow. And I chose this book again because, first of all, this is a book that I feel that everybody needs to read, and it was such a great read. It was a 5-star read. It's non-fiction. It's a collection of essays about surrealism in the Caribbean and how Caribbean voices kind of utilize surrealism in order to make a platform for their voices to be heard. And it kind of analyzes that from their own voices in a really interesting way, where you learn about blackness in the Caribbean. It just presented a really insightful way into a collection of voices that you might not have been able to access before. And I think that Debbie would really appreciate this, but also the essays themselves are just enjoyable reads. So then the next booktuber that I want to recommend some books to is Beth from Beth Chats Books. And I love the way that she always introduces her channel as Beth Chats Books. It just makes me smile every time I hear it. Now, Beth does some really, really lovely videos. She talks about some really great books, and she gives some of the best reviews that I have seen on BookTube. And I know a lot of people don't really appreciate review videos as much. However, the way that Beth delivers her reviews are so eloquent, and she talks about the whole scope of the book without giving anything away, without spoiling it, and she really gives like an in-depth analysis of all the things that she liked, all the things that, you know, weren't as strong, and she sort of balances all these arguments and thoughts through her reviews, like in such a delightful manner that you just kind of want to then buy the book straight away. So for Beth, The first book, the book from my shelf that I want to suggest, is one that I have already told her that she needs to read, and so this is not going to be any surprise to anyone or her. It's Under the Jaguar Sun by Italo Calvino. The reason that I suggested this one, or this one makes me think of Beth, is because she recently read Perfume, the Story of a Murderer, and she loved that style of writing that really encapsulated the sense of smell through the text, and that's something that makes Perfume such a strong book. Now this book is 3 short stories, and each one is based around sense. So the first one is taste, the second one is sound, and the third one is smell, and actually has a similar theme to Perfume. This book is just going to be perfect for Beth. Given the way that she enjoyed Perfume so much, she's going to enjoy this one for the exact same reasons, and I love this book. So Beth, you need to get to it, okay? You must. The second book that I want to suggest to Beth to read is Grotesque by Natsuo Kirino. Now this book is an interesting one. The reason I chose it is because it is 3 narrators, and it kind of explores the role of women and violence and prostitution. Now I think Beth will enjoy this because the themes and the topics of this book are certainly ones that I think she will be interested in exploring. And when Beth spoke about Lolita, hearing her thoughts about that book and the topics of that book made me kind of really think about this book, comparing how, to read a book of such heavy caliber and appreciating it nonetheless makes me think that she can have the same sort of skills to enjoy this book and appreciate it in the way that I think it should be appreciated. So then the last booktuber that I want to mention and to shout out and to suggest books to is Ollie at Ollie Bliss / is it Bookdraw, I think is the name of his channel. Now Ollie predominantly makes books about queer fiction, and also he creates artworks from the books that he's been reading. For some reason, I don't read much like LGBTQ plus literature. I don't know why. It's just never really been my cup of tea, I guess. Although I have read some here and there, but it is great to hear him talking about it and to learn of some new titles that I might actually enjoy, even if the genre isn't one that I tend to gravitate to. Choosing books for Ollie proved a little bit difficult, but I think I've got 2 that he could enjoy. Now the book that's on my shelf that makes me think of Ollie is this one. It's Nightwood by Juana Barnes. Now I chose this one because it's touted to be one of the earliest, it's not, I don't think it's but it's one of the earliest novels to explicitly have a lesbian relationship in it. There's also a trans character in this book. So I chose that, of course, because it ties in with Ollie's channel, and it's probably like one of those pioneering books for the LGBTQ plus community. Not many people have spoken about it on BookTube, and the people who have, there's always been a bit of a mixed review. I personally didn't enjoy this book. However, I think Ollie would. I think Ollie would appreciate what this book is and what this book represents. And I will say this, within this book, there were lots of very vivid moments of scenes that I could just, the way that it was written, I could just see the scenes, like straight up see them. And I don't often get that in books. I usually get a sense of a scene, but never like vividly can picture it. But in this book, it did give me those moments where I was vividly watching the scene unfold, and I could get a real picture of everything that's going around. And I think that's something that Ollie would really like from this, and I think it's something that could inspire him to create a drawing of, because there are these moments that are just so descriptive and so beautiful. The book as a whole didn't really do much for me, but I think it will do more for you, Ollie, I hope at least. The second book that I want to suggest for you, Ollie, is Tom at the Farm by Michelle-Marc Bucard. Now this is a play, you may have heard of it because Xavier Dolan, he adapted this play into a film. Now this one, again, it has the gay theme. It's about a man whose partner has just died, and the man has gone to visit his partner's family. Now his partner's family doesn't know that their son/brother was gay. So not only does the main character have to like sort of say that his partner has passed away to his family, but he has also had to say that his partner was gay. So it's about him trying to figure out the perfect time to share this news, but then also there's just really tense family drama that's going on that becomes very dramatic. It becomes very highly tense, and you know, the characters are kind of almost stuck in this time bomb that's about to explode but never does quite explode. Not only is the theme something that Ollie would enjoy, but I think the fact that not only is it a play, and you can see images from productions of it being put online, but the fact that it was also made into a movie kind of demonstrates how vivid the scene is. And watching the movie, there are moments in the film that are just aesthetically beautiful, and you know, it's part of Delan's style, which I really enjoy. And I think, again, that sort of aesthetic side to this play is something that Ollie could really just gain something from, like artistically. And yeah, I think he would enjoy it. They are my book recommendations, and they are my Small BookTuber Sunday Shoutouts. I think I said it right this time. And I hope you enjoyed it. And to the 5 booktubers that I suggested books to, let me know if you have read any of them, because I'll feel bad for recommending a book that you've already read. Let me know if you're interested in reading them, and yeah, and to everyone else, you know, let me know what your thoughts about these books are, and if you know these booktubers, do you think the match is a decent one or not, or would you recommend another kind of book? You can let me know all this in the comments below. I love reading your comments, and yes, you can always give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and you can always subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I shall see you next time for another video. Bye bye.